President of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, joins me now. So, Tom, this is a victory for you, and some critics of the former Attorney General Jeff Sessions might even say it's a victory for the Justice Department to force them to do something that maybe they should have done before. What's your thought?
You know, one aspect of this ruling is the court didn't just criticize the Obama State Department and Justice Department, but highlighted the problem of this Justice Department continuing to defend the indefensible. He specifically talked about the chicanery of this Justice Department's continued defense and excuse-making for the misconduct of Hillary Clinton and the State Department and Justice Department previously. And he also talked about not being terribly convinced about Mr. Comey's testimony about the thoroughness of his Clinton email investigation. And it shows you the value, frankly, Harris, if we could promote Judicial Watch a little bit, of having an independent group like Judicial Watch focused on this, because Congress has dropped the ball here. The Justice Department, frankly, is on the other side of this, even during this administration. And, you know, the courts have been hoodwinked here, to use a phrase that the court highlighted in his decision. And so they're not going to back down. And now some people like Mrs. Clinton potentially are going to have to answer additional questions.
You know, I am curious about one point, because we have found out recently that Ivanka Trump also had her own personal email server with some emails on it, and she has talked substantively about how all of that sits on the White House server, and that nothing had been deleted. If critics of the Trump administration question about that comparatively to Hillary Clinton and what you're seeking, what is your answer?
Well, it frankly just highlights the egregious nature of what Mrs. Clinton did when you compare what happened with Ivanka Trump, where you had some emails about government business being sent on her private account before and after her work at the White House, emails by all accounts that were captured and preserved, which is in fact what they probably need to be. There's no legal prohibition on using personal emails for government business now and again. The difference here is Hillary Clinton specifically set up an email system to make sure no emails would be captured by the government and provided to investigators as long as she had anything to do with it, until, as the court highlighted, Judicial Watch caught him.
You know, there is another difference, too, that I see that I wonder, could your FOIA or could this investigation get to the bottom of? Will we ever know exactly how many and how the emails were destroyed? I mean, we've heard all sorts of stories about this was taken out into the woods and they attacked it and that server was destroyed. I mean, what are the facts that you know so far about that? That's important. It's the deletions. It's that sort of subterfuge accusation.
Well, at least half of the emails Hillary Clinton improperly took from the White House were destroyed, about 33,000 of them, as best we can tell, because we've been getting the emails that the FBI has been able either to recover or otherwise find. The FBI has only been able to find 5,000 of them, so there are, 27,000 emails still missing. And highlights the egregious nature, again, of what Mrs. Clinton did, this massive destruction of government records. She had no business taking any of these emails out of the State Department, and she did. And the American people deserve full answers. And frankly, the court, I think, is speaking for millions of Americans and demanding accountability here. And I hope the new Attorney General is paying attention to decisions like this, because this is what's going on in the Justice Department. They're defending Hillary Clinton while attacking President Trump on specious charges.
All right. Judicial Watch, as you said, important work that you were doing. FOIA is something that journalists use all the time. We'll be watching very closely. Thank you for coming on the program.
You're welcome, Harris. Thank you.
Well, Judicial Watch is suing the Justice Department for records about meetings between a law firm working with the Clinton campaign and former FBI General Counsel James Baker. This comes after the DOJ failed to respond to the watchdog group's Freedom of Information Act request last month. The president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, joins me now with more. First of all, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Heather. Thanks for having me.
So you're seeking records of all meetings in 2016 between former FBI General Counsel James Baker and the Perkins Coie law firm, correct?
Well, that's right. There was a specific report that James Baker testified to House investigators that he had an unusual request or a visit with a lawyer for Perkins Coie who happened to represent the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton and hired Fusion GPS, and all that led to the Fusion GPS dossier that was used to target Team Trump. And Baker says it was an unusual request, and at the meeting he was conveyed documents about the Russia probe and some computer devices that had something to do with Russia hacking. I'm not sure. Now, the law firm says it wasn't about, the meeting wasn't about anything having to do with their representation of the DNC and the Clinton campaign, and so there's a little bit of a mystery as to what was provided, and it raises some questions about, again, the collaboration between, in an unusual way, the top lawyer for the FBI and one of the top lawyers for the Clinton DNC operation. What
possible explanation would there be other than that to share this information?
Look, the FBI General Counsel testified under oath it was about Russia. So this is on top of the dossier being laundered into the Clinton, into the FBI and the DOJ numerous ways. It was used by not only the Obama administration, but by the Trump administration on behalf of Mueller to spy on the Trump team through Carter Page.
So would Mueller have been aware of all this activity?
Oh, I would presume so. I think one of the reasons we're having difficulty finding out about this collusion is because the Mueller special counsel operation has benefited from the collusive efforts between the DNC, the Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, which by its own admission used Russia intel sources to dig up dirt on Donald Trump, then to share with the FBI and DOJ. And remember, that FISA warrant, that final renewal of a FISA warrant was signed by Rod Rosenstein in the middle of the Mueller investigation.
Why has that still not been released in its entirety, like President Trump had said he was going to do?
The president said that he was convinced to kick it over to the Department of Justice Inspector General. We're still waiting. It is urgent that the president release this information.
Yeah.
Those who've looked at the full FISA warrant applications have said that the additional information is even more scandalous than what's already in there.
All right, so another scandal brewing. Conservative writer Jerome Corsi, he has hit Bob Mueller with his criminal complaint. He says that the special counsel sought to get false testimony from him.
Well, Jerry Corsi thinks that he's been truthful with the special counsel. He's being pressured to say things that aren't true, and that's deeply disturbing. The problem for the special counsel is you have these individuals like Jerry Corsi get caught up in the investigation, and Jerry says, look, I've been trying to be forthright with him. I haven't lied. They found emails that suggest some of my testimony, however, made in good faith, was not accurate, and they're accusing me of perjury, and it's not the case.
Well, he sees what happened with other people.
George Papadopoulos. What's interesting here, these folks would never be here but for their connections to the Trump campaign. In the case of Corsi, it's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon connection to the Trump campaign. And, he's called in as a witness. He's trying to cooperate. And then he's allegedly facing jail time. So I don't blame him for yelling about it.
Yeah. So what about Comey? We know that he is now set for this closed-door hearing on Capitol Hill later this week, Friday specifically, I think. Should the former FBI director be held accountable for exonerating Hillary Clinton before even finishing the investigation? You and I have talked about this before. And what should Republicans ask him?
Well, they should ask him about that. They should ask him about why he told Congress just before the election that there was nothing on the Anthony Weiner laptop before evidently they had reviewed all the emails. They should ask about why and how he took FBI memos he created on Donald Trump from the FBI and then improperly leaked them to the New York Times to get the Mueller appointment going. They should ask him about this use of the Clinton DNC-funded dossier and Peter Strzok and what he was up to, why it is he ran essentially these investigations out of his office as opposed to the ordinary course where you would have had local offices of the FBI either in New York or elsewhere here in Washington, D.C. run the investigations. You know, James Comey's at the center of the storm here, and of course, you know, he's under investigation himself, so this is a serious issue for him, and I just wish that Congress had questioned him earlier, but you know, the Republicans are about to lose control, so
you expect
I guess they're doing everything they can.
We're almost out of time, but do you expect equal treatment for James Comey if it is determined that he lied as well from Bob Mueller?
No, I don't. I think some of these folks are protected, and unless there's a radical change in outlook for the FBI, I just want an investigation done. We're not even sure there's anything being done in terms of investigating these abuses of authority by the FBI and the Justice Department to target the Trump team.
Yeah. All right. Tom Fitton, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you and your team staying on top of it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
The pot can be hot, simply teeming with sex. A gay divorcee who is after her ex.
I got a lot of fears as a parent. I'm gonna tell you guys one of my biggest fears. One of my biggest fears is my son growing up and being gay.
He had said things in the past like, I don't want my child, I don't want my son to be gay.
Right.
Which is
These
are
horribly
hurtful
offensive.
comments.
Which is horribly
And
offensive.
it's one thing, you know, he says he had addressed it in the past, he had talked about this in some ways in the past. It's different if you halfway address it as a comedian versus when you're being given one of the biggest jobs in Hollywood, hosting the biggest night in Hollywood in front of 40 or 50 million viewers. When you're given that platform, then you probably owe people more than whatever you said years ago trying to address this in the past.
Brian Stelter, is it Stelter?
Stelter.
I always say Stetler.
You might be
Stelter
right.
at CNN complaining about Kevin Hart, who was doing something called a comedy act. Comedy. It's comedy, buddy. It's not real life.
Since when does everything a comedian say from
real.
the stage
Is real.
is
It
now
really
real
happened.
life? It's like
And it really happened.
Like you're a politician who has a record or something. It's a joke. My gosh, if you pulled up the things I heard Don Rickles say in person about black people, Chinese people, African people,
We couldn't play 'em.
Asian people, Italian people, you'd have to put him in jail.
Your Bart George is getting smaller and smaller. Tell him what you told me, how you're fed up with the blacks and you don't want them in your neighborhood. But we need the blacks. Without them, there'd be no Olympics.
But by the way, the front rows of those, it's interesting in the front row. And you look at them, it was very diverse.
Well,
people from all backgrounds. I mean, you obviously times have changed. You can't say those things today at all. But back then,
Laura, in the early 2000s, I saw Don Rickles. I saw him in Biloxi, Mississippi, with audiences that were absolutely black, white, multicolored.
No, it was,
and people elbowed each other to get those front seats because you wanted him to roast you.
Yeah.
That is part of the shtick. And I have to say, when you finished a show like that, you felt, you know what? I've been
We've
through
all
this
gotten ripped.
experience with these people.
we've all gotten ripped.
And you've looked at each other and you've laughed with each other. And I have to tell you, it's like, think of the time you've gone to a game where you suddenly feel you know the people around you.
Yeah.
That's what it's
fun.
like going to a Rickles concert. But you've lived through something where everybody's been razzed.
But people believe that those kinds of jokes, you know, the stereotypes that come out of them are not helpful. And they're hurtful to people instead. And I think part of what's happened is that when you allow other people's, you know, lampooning to define you, then you got bigger problems.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm lampooned all the time.
I know, but you know, he who laughs first laughs loudest. Yeah. When you poke fun at something, even what people think of you, when you poke fun at that or lean into it a little bit, you get bigger. Yeah. That stereotype is weakened by the satire.
Well, Raymond, I think it's really not a cool thing for you to tell me to do Kate McKinnon doing my voice on SNL. Because literally we only have like erectile dysfunction advertisers left. And let me tell you, those pills I hear work really well.
Oh, that is so...
She's the worst, but it's actually
You're
funny.
actually quite good at doing her. See,
I am.
if they were really smart, you wouldn't do it. But they'd invite you on to do her doing you.
Oh, my God. I would do a great Kate McKinnon because I could do her next to me.
All right. In the same dress.
Well,
I have to say,
Kate,
that's the one thing they got right. The dress and the cross. They finally got that right after many weeks.
I'm boring clothes. It is one of the dresses I've worn. But now, what else? Yeah. You don't realize when you're on television 5 nights a week, everything gets boring. You can't shock everybody or not shock everybody. It's just hard to have...
Keep surprising people.
Because as a woman, men can just wear the suit and a tie. No one cares.
Don't look at me that way when you say that.
Well, but men have a suit and a tie. Women, we have to look... a certain, we
the
have
fact
to look
is,
a certain way.
Men can literally have 4 suits in the closet and 100 ties, and it looks different every time.
Right.
Because it's
so
black,
unfair.
blue, gray.
By the way,
blue.
Maria put a lizard on my face down in the Bahamas.
We're talking about Kevin Hart.
I know, I'm sorry,
right?
but she put a lizard. The kids thought it was funny to collect these little lizards.
Sounds like a first world problem. Where were you?
Shut up. In the Bahamas.
Uh-huh.
And Nico was putting them on his ears, and they were literally hanging onto his ears like earrings.
Why are your
lizards.
children putting amphibians on there?
I don't know, but Maria was in the kitchen, and she said, "Oh, Mom," and I had another friend there. I was like, he's like, wait, whoa, what's on your face? It's like, it's a lizard. Get it off my face.
Oh, no.
And ever since then, I've had a little bite and a little circle.
You know
on
what's
my
going to
face.
happen?
Do I have Lyme? Can you get Lyme's disease from a lizard?
Lizards don't carry
But
Lyme's
why do I
disease.
still have this mark on my face? The
I
poor
think
makeup people at Fox have to cover it up.
In the new year, this could be a whole alien situation where during a live broadcast,
a
it
lizard just
burrows
pops
out
of
of your face. Yeah, it would be fantastic.
It could have hatched eggs in me, maybe.
Well, I'm waiting for that. You know what? Do you know when I was a kid, I had... boy, we're really getting into the weeds here. When I was a kid, I had chiggers. Do you know what a chigger is?
You got them chiggers.
Chiggers. It was I was tubing in a river in Louisiana, which is always a dangerous thing to do. And they burrow into your skin. They actually plant little eggs under the skin. And you know how you kill them? You put nail polish on them, and it smothers the eggs. Literally in you. And they're right above, like right below your waistline. That's where they burrow the eggs. So you got to kill them, or you might have more problems than you counted on. Now, I was like 8, so it's been a while, but that's how you had to kill them with the... So put some nail polish on your face. Maybe that will kill the...
I'm concerned about this. Okay.
By the way, they've given Kevin Hart... They offer Kevin Hart the Oscar gig. Yeah, but they declined to their lowest level, the lowest viewing of all time last year, 20% lower than the year before, which is the ceremony's worst viewership ever over on ABC. That was the 90th telecast. Again, that was Jimmy Kimmel. Destroyed the place. Destroyed it. It drew about 32 million people, the smallest Academy Award since 2008, hosted by Jon Stewart. Again, what was that line from Sunset Boulevard?
What?
The stars are getting smaller. Something like that. Anyway.
Let's go to Lita in Arizona, line 4. The politically correct lack of humor set. Again, they're not funny. They're killjoys, as I said last night on the Ingram angle, and they're aggressively boring. The left is killing fun in the United States across the board, even going after poor claymation reindeers.